What is democracy? Whose democracy? How is it that every time we think that we have diagnosed the disease properly and that we have a new antidote, when we apply that antidote, a new wound appears? Well, don't you remember that no sooner had Congo regained independence in 1961 than there was a coup d'etat and Patrice Emery Lumumba was killed? If you doubt me, is it not the truth that in 1966 they overthrew Kwame Nkrumah? It appears that the systems of governance that we inherited and that we have been deploying for our benefit continue to put us at the foot of the ladder. But that notwithstanding, I think it is in order to recognize His Excellency, the former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, who has occasioned this event to happen. Your Excellency, I salute you, as I do salute your wife, Madam Patience. Permit me also to recognize the former President of Sierra Leone, His Excellency, Dr. Ernest Koroma, as I also appreciate the former Vice President of the Gambia and the Chair of the ECOWAS Commission, and of course, the Governor of Bayelsa, under whose feet we are eating metaphorically. And of course, his wife and the governors from different states of Nigeria, the royal fathers, and as is wise in every occasion, and this is common, whenever men are in presence of their wife, they say, "My good wife," who is present in this assembly. I also want to appreciate a Nigerian friend who, while out of this country, said he must be here, and is here, Dr. Linus Okorie, who flew all the way from the United States of America to be with me here. We are gathered here to talk about democracy. I'm very slow to use that word in the recent past, because who defines democracy? What is it? Is it about the periodic meetings or elections that we hold every so often? Is it equal to governance? Who defines democracy? Many years ago, a great African-American, John Henry Clark, who is a great Pan-Africanist, observing the many African countries that were regaining independence, said that when African countries regained independence, all of them inherited systems of government that were inherited from their former colonizers. And he went on to say, and none of them will ever succeed on the basis of those inherited governance systems. There is a sense in which those words now ring true. We are in a continent that is today divided into 54 countries out of a scheme which was hatched by European powers in 1884 and 1885, when they sat in Berlin to divide the continent of Africa into spheres of influence, into hunting grounds, The British had their hunting ground. The French did. The Belgians did. The Italians did. The Germans did. The Portuguese did. Then, of course, we resisted them, and they appeared to leave, and we celebrated. But the question is, did they leave? And if they leave, if they left the continent in which they lived and still are living, what impact did they have? Is the impact still with us? Have we liberated ourselves? And why did we drive them away? I can still remember those words that I listened to every so often, spoken on the 6th day of March, 1957 by Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah, that the independence of Ghana means nothing if the rest of Africa is not free. I can still remember him saying that we are regaining independence, that we may govern ourselves, that we may harness our resources, that we may have education that is in the best interest of our people, that we may take control of our cocoa and coffee and yams. The question this afternoon, have we? The question is, after all the countries regained independence and we started electing our leaders, did they change? Did they husband our resources in a better way? I can still remember in 1958 when the same Kwame Nkrumah invites leaders in Accra, Ghana in 1958 and tells them that we are not truly free. There is another project that has inherited colonialism. It is neocolonialism. And I can remember him moving 2 years later in Casablanca, Morocco, and telling his audience, this independence that we think we have regained, we will lose it. We will lose it because the neocolonizer has not left. He is with us, and he is using some of us, and he is the enemy from within that we must be wary of. And he did not stop there. 3 years later, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, 32 African countries are now independent. Each one of them, heads of states, talking about Africa, about African unity, about the need to have one army, about the need to have one government, about the need to have one currency, about the need to have a common unified foreign policy. But they listened to him not. And we had a weak organization called the OAU, which made its contribution, participated in the liberation of other African countries. But the question is Africa the richer because we regained independence? You will remember that even as we regained independence, the other countries still remained here, and it's only in the 1980s that we see other African countries regaining their independence. You'll remember the wars of independence in Angola. You'll remember the wars of independence in Mozambique. You'll remember the wars of independence in Guinea-Bissau and Cabo Verde. And you'll remember the last bastion of man's inhumanity to man in South Africa in 1984, preceded only by liberation from the regime in what is now Zimbabwe. The question is, the promises that our founding fathers made to us, Have we fulfilled them as we talk about democracy and constitutions? Who brought the constitutions to us? Which constitutions do our traditional rulers operate from? Are they written? For whose interests are they written? As I talk about democracy and development now, I want you to cast your eyes across the continent of Africa now. Look at young people dying as they leave the coast of Senegal. When you tell them about democracy and elections, are you talking to them when they are dying? When they are dying in the Mediterranean, are you talking to them? If you go into a room where there are 10 young Africans, 8 of them want to run away from the continent of Africa, even in countries where there are so-called constitutional governments. This is the Africa that we are talking about today. When you go to Australia, Europe, and America, young Africans are being humiliated. If you doubted it, you only saw what happened in Ukraine when the war broke out. See how Africans were being humiliated. The question that we are asking today, and the question that is alive and well today, and the debate that we ought to wrap our minds around today is, what is democracy? Whose democracy? Is there a possibility that we who are gathered here today, as Carter G. Woodson said in 1933, we are so thoroughly miseducated that in fact, even when we think we are getting it right, we are getting it wrong? Is it a possibility that one of the things that we must do in assemblies such as this and at all times is to unlearn some of the indoctrination to which we have been subjected so that we may learn things that can help the continent of Africa? How is it that every time we think that we have diagnosed the disease properly and that we have a new antidote, when we apply that antidote, a new wound appears? How is it? How is it that when we regained independence in 1960, it started with coup d'etats, and as we speak now, we have coup d'etats? If our memories are not serving us well, don't you remember that no sooner had Congo regained independence in 1961 than there was a coup d'etat and Patrice Emery Lumumba was killed? If you doubt me, is it not the case that in 1963 in Togo they killed Sylvanus Olympia? If you doubt me, is it not the truth that in 1966 they overthrew Kwame Nkrumah? Is it not the truth that in this country they took away the government of Nnamdi Azikiwe and Abubakar Tafawa Balewa in 1967? Is it not true that they eliminated Modibo Keita in Mali? That they took away Ahmed Ben Bella in Algeria? So our story is, as the French would say, plus ça change, plus c'est la même change. The more things change, the more they remain the same. And if that is the case, we must ask ourselves uncomfortable questions, which will give us uncomfortable answers. Many times we don't want to ask those uncomfortable questions because we know the answers and we do not want to hear the answers. And we are assembled here to remind ourselves that the reason why we lament about Africa is that it appears that the systems of governance that we inherited and that we have been deploying for our benefit continue to put us at the foot of the ladder. We do not complain because there have been no changes and improvement in our circumstances. In certain cases, there have been. But as Uganda's Yoweri Museveni says, and I agree with him, what is the point of fighting as to who is taller than the other when you are all dwarfs?
There you have it, guys. So PLO Lumumba is always full of wisdom and, has really powerful ideas. And his speeches really convey the notion of wisdom and what African leaders need to really always remember that Africa represents. And we're really hoping that most of his speeches can be adhered to and probably worked on to help alleviate the challenges Africa is really facing in the post-colonial era. But what do you guys think about this speech? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please share and like and subscribe, because that's the way you support Kwazemi as a channel, an Afrocentric channel, where we try to understand deeper issues in African history and hopefully develop a collective intelligence on how we wish to build the Africa we want to see as people of Africa. See you in the next one.